Some more post-budget analysis. I'm joined in studio by Patricia Pillay from the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. You've said that the increase in those so-called sin taxes is only going to lead to illicit trade.
Yeah, I think that we need to look at unintended consequences of this budget speech. I think that when you look at your excise duty that's been increased, what's going to happen is opening up the market for illicit trade. So if I could give you an example, currently your minimum duty that you pay on a pack of cigarettes is about 17 Rand 58 cents. But when you go out there on the street, you can buy a pack of cigarettes for 10 Rand. So that will tell you the impact that we're having. And it's not only cigarettes, it's across the industries. We're dealing with pharmaceuticals, we're dealing with apparel. So it's a huge issue for us as an industry.
You've also spoken about that illicit trade, saying the illicit economy has now become a major economic threat to our country. How is that, and what are you planning to do to try and change that?
Sure. So if I use the example of cigarettes, we're losing over 8 billion Rand that SARS could be collecting in terms of our illicit market taking over. And that's a lot of money which could help our fiscus quite a lot. So I think that from our side, what we've done is last year, we've launched a task team. We've worked along with SAPS as well as SARS in terms of putting together proposals we can bring to government as to how we're going to now combat illicit trade.
And you've also said as a body that you're concerned about the slow implementation of policy. I mean, that's an issue that people are always raising, and government always says they are trying, but there's only so much they can do.
I think that there's levels of consultation that need to take place. I think that, and we have to acknowledge that government does consult. I think that's a positive. We've come a long way in that arena. But I think that there needs to be more practical implementation as well. And I think our enforcement is still a huge issue, which we're battling with. We have great legislation. I think sometimes we actually amend legislation when it's not necessary even. And so we need to just relook at the enforcement rather.
One of the issues that's been coming up a lot is this sugar tax. So government is saying that too much sugar leads to lifestyle diseases such as diabetes, obesity, and the sugar producers, such as the Sugarcane Association, is saying that it's decimating jobs in South Africa, and the sugar tax needs to go away, but it doesn't seem like it's going to.
Yeah, well, you see, this is exactly what I was saying about the unintended consequences. You implement something like a sugar tax, and then later on now, we currently suffer with job losses in an industry that's collapsing. And for me, you know, this is what government needs to realize is when you're consulting and when the reports are being given to you and you're seeing the numbers and the figures of what exactly will happen if the bill is implemented, you need to pay attention to that. And sugar tax is the exact example of what we'd be dealing with at the moment. We've got the competition law amendment, the regulations that are out as well. We've commented on them. And if you look at the practical implications, it's not good, not whether it's for small business or for big business.
Why is that?
Well, because what they're trying to do is protect small business, but in doing that, what they're actually doing is making it difficult for small business to actually do business. So they're looking at the way you engage, the policies that the bigger businesses are imposing on you as a smaller business, but we need to take into consideration health constraints as well. You need to make sure there's food safety standards, for example, for small businesses to get into stores. So these are all the practicalities, I think, the government may not quite understand that they need to consult more on and actually understand.
Let's go back to that sugar tax example. I was speaking to someone from the South African Cane Association, Cane Growers Association, and he was talking about the amount of sugar that's coming in from Swaziland, which means that in some South African sugar producers are sitting with mills and mills of sugar that's not being used. In an instance like that, it's not only the sugar tax that's an issue, it's the tariffs and it's the importing of extra sugar that's coming in. Is there not another way to find a solution that doesn't deal with the sugar tax but deals with the other issues that are around sugar growing and sugar production?
Yeah, but you see, it's the result of them sitting with it is the tax. So we have to accept the reality of the situation is that it's actually made it worse for the local manufacturers rather than better.
What interactions then do you have with government? You've said they consult and you present papers to them. Do you need to then add an extra step to say we've had comments? Can you give us feedback on the comments? Can you see the unintended consequences that might come out? And how can we fix those before it's turned into legislation?
I think the ideas now that are coming out from government are to establish task teams, to establish inquiries. I think that's a very positive move because then you're working together, you're collaborating. You know, it's not just here's a piece of paper, accept it. It's it's a case of you get together, you actually work through these issues, and then you actually implement.
Patricia Pillay from the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa, thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon.